Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 12 of Unapologetically Uterine. I'm VNA with my co host Gail, and today we have a really amazing guest from Shout Your Abortion. But before we begin with the introductions, I will tell you a little bit more about our topic for today. Although abortions are a normal part of life, in many places it's still considered a controversial and taboo topic. Due to this stigma, women and pregnant people have had a hard time sharing their abortion journey and resources on how to have a safe abortion. In this episode, we're joined by Shout Your Abortion to talk about how abortion storytelling can change lives. So, please, Erin, could you introduce yourself a little bit to the audience and a little bit more about what Shout Your Abortion does?
Yeah, hi, my name's Erin. I use she, her pronouns, and I am based in the US in Seattle, Washington on the West Coast. So Shout Your Abortion, the name's kind of like self-explanatory, like started as an abortion storytelling platform maybe like 6 or 7 years ago. So basically, it kind of started organically as a place to allow people to share their abortion stories in their own words. And from there, it's really grown into like an art project, an activism project. We do a lot of kind of like uh, things to like garner publicity around abortion. And now, specifically moving into helping people like access information about how to get safe abortion, mainly in the US, but now we're branching out more into international connections, which is amazing. That's also part of my new job title is communications and international connections. So, yeah, in a nutshell, that's who we are as an organization, but we're always kind of coming back to the foundation of abortion storytelling. So I'm super excited to talk about this topic with everyone.
We're so excited to have you here. I think if you think of abortion and storytelling, you think of Shout Your Abortion. Like it's the first thing that comes into your mind. So it's really great to have you here. But getting into this topic, I think the first question that we really need to dive into is what is storytelling? For you, Erin, what is storytelling?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just want to like start that question or start my answer by saying that, I mean, Shout Your Abortion is such a broad platform that I'm going to give my answer of what I think it is, but it's really like we really want everybody's kind of like voice in this, and everybody has different definitions of what abortion storytelling is. So yeah. So I guess the way that I would define it, I just think it's like talking about your life, talking about all the different things that like happen over the course of your life. So I think we call it abortion storytelling because abortion has been so like siloed and silenced that we've almost had to create a new category, abortion storytelling. But if you're just talking about your life in general, we don't put this modifier in front of it. Do you know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm a musician in my everyday life, and I don't say like I'm going to talk about music storytelling. You know what I mean? It's just
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I'm just going to tell a story about my life. So I think abortion storytelling, we've kind of had to create this category because it's been so scary and stigmatized and silenced. But for me, yeah, I think storytelling is just like, it's like a regular everyday thing, talking about like what happens in your life, big things, small things, just like talking about what life is. So for me, that's my definition of storytelling.
I really love this. It's very much a holistic way of viewing it and very simple, kind of to the point, which is what storytelling really is. For you, Gail, what is storytelling? How has it impacted your life?
I feel like Erin practically put everything together. But yeah, just to add up to what she said, it's basically sharing a narrative about your life, an experience, and I feel like we tell stories every day in our lives because even just picking up the phone to share something that happened to you with a friend, with your family, with your partner, that's just you telling a story. So anything that's a narrative that you are sharing. That's an experience. It does not even have to be an experience, just a narrative that you are giving to other people. So, specifically when it comes to abortion, it's just people sharing their experience and their journeys. As abortion seekers, as abortion advocates, as abortion allies. like anybody at all who is in proximity with abortion and has a narrative to share that can impact the next abortion seeker or just anybody at all. That's storytelling for me.
That's also a really great way to view it. And I think something that is so important about storytelling is this historical aspect. You know, that we hear a lot of stories of women sharing their lived experiences, especially with sexual and reproductive health, when it hasn't been popularized or maybe it wasn't easy to access things like birth control or how to create safe pregnancy experiences or safe abortion experiences. It's from word of mouth when we learn about these topics and how important it is to share the knowledge we have. But circling back to to storytelling, for you, Erin, how does this abortion storytelling benefit abortion seekers?
I mean, I can speak even just from my own perspective, kind of very broadly. I guess I've been working for SYA for 5 or 6 years now. And I've just seen like such a cultural shift in the US, just in like talking about abortion and people being feeling more okay to like use the word abortion in everyday life. It's just been like a really seismic change. So I think just bringing that word and people's comfortability a bit more into like everyday life and popular culture, I think makes a huge difference for people who are like seeking abortions because you feel, I mean, obviously not everyone and not everywhere, but you feel a little more safe talking about just even talking about the fact that abortion even exists and it's so common. So many people have them. People have all different kinds of experiences about them. So I think just normalizing abortion broadly and culturally in general, I think helps abortion seekers in many ways, maybe in practical ways, like it maybe helps people it might help people, try to pass a law around abortion, just like the comfortability of talking about abortion. And it might help people, help people in their community, like access abortion and not have so much like stigma and judgment about it. So I think I don't have like metrics or something like this, but I think it just affects abortion access across the board very broadly when talking about abortion is more accepted, like culturally.
Mm-hmm. And I think something that you mentioned was about the statistics. I feel like statistics are very impactful in their own way, but I feel like sometimes a story, a narrative really impacts things. You know, you see maybe a number like 1,000 women had abortion in this region. But you forget that with each number is a person, a name, a story, a reason why they want to have or have to have an abortion, what is the stigma that they had to face. So I feel like putting a bit of context into what's happening is really great. And at least on my end, I think learning about how women have navigated their abortion stories, whether it be a good or a bad experience, really changes your mindset on how we should view these abortions. For you, Gail, how do you think that this abortion storytelling can contribute to abortion rights?
For abortion rights specifically, I think, like Erin shared, I think it's a form of advocacy with an aim that's like the more you are sharing these humanized stories, people can see the effect that restrictive laws, especially, can have on people. Because sometimes some of the stories you hear of people in countries and states that have made abortion so legally binding, um it can be very frustrating and sad to listen to all the hoops people have to go through to get something that is healthcare and should be their choice. But a lot of women go through so much to be able to access abortion care. So I think the storytelling aspect can also be used as a form of advocacy when it comes to people like us, activists and advocates, because the more you tell these stories, the more people, the public, the more advocacy leaders, the more public opinion is changed about abortions. And I think it's also influences perspective. So just coming back to myself, I I'm a storyteller. And I'm a bit of a yaka. And you can ask Riani, I always have some personal stories to share. But I know I've mentioned this before, but I grew up not being pro-choice. I was somebody who grew up in a very heavy religious home. So for me, I grew up thinking abortion is a sin and all that. And my first encounter with abortion was someone I knew from years ago having to have an abortion, and I was the only person there to support them. And in that moment, it just changed my perspective on abortion, because this was someone I loved, and I knew that if they go along with the pregnancy, it's not going to be a good thing for them. So the phrase "someone you love has had an abortion" always comes to mind, because when I saw a friend in need like that, it drastically changed how I feel, how I think, and how I see people who need to get abortion care. So storytelling influences perspective, and for advocacy as well. It can help for people to see that restrictive laws are only harming abortion seekers out there.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I love that Gail mentions that she always shares her story because it's true. And I think it's very powerful that she shares and mentions that she wasn't pro choice. That she, when she, you know, went into this field and learned more about it and with the experience with her loved one, you can see how your view can shift. And I think, for example, in my case, I've seen that social media has also made this kind of shift in narrative and storytelling. Right now, social media really prioritizes a lot of video content, and a lot of this content is just chatting. It's chatting, it's get ready with me, it's story times. So we see that people are addressing these issues in a way that's more amicable and easy to understand. I think a lot of the times people don't want to dive into this topic of abortion because they're like, oh no, like that's something that's clinical. That's something that I shouldn't get invested in. When the truth is that abortion happens to a lot of people, and we may not know it because we don't feel comfortable sharing our story. But social media has given us this tool to do this kind of storytelling. But in regards to storytelling, Erin, I would love to know how Shout Your Abortion began this journey and why Shout Your Abortion decided it was important to amplify these abortion stories.
Yeah, I mean, I think it wasn't planned. It was really pretty accidental. And it's so funny because I grew up in a very religious background as well, like very like anti-abortion too. And then I had my own abortions, so I kind of had to like deal with it. Um, how did it start is our founder actually wrote a story about her abortion on Facebook. And then somebody else kind of like put that on Twitter with the hashtag shout your abortion, which I think I wasn't involved at this point, but I think it was almost kind of like a joke, like, oh, we need a hashtag, like how about shout your abortion? And then it just kind of like took off. All these people started reposting, like, I had an abortion too, shout your abortion. So it just became clear that there was like a need for this, like culturally, so I don't think it was planned at all. It wasn't like pre-planned or anything. It was just like a complete accident. You saw all these people responding, and then it was like, oh, obviously there's like a need for this. I forgot the second part of your
No,
question.
no, it was just in general, like why did this happen, and what's the importance of amplifying these stories?
I think it's important for people to be able to like talk about things that happen in their lives, first of all, in a way that's like without shame and without stigma. But you can also see that the narrative is so controlled by the anti-abortion language, the anti-abortion stigma. The anti-abortion narrative is the one that's like the most strong in popular culture. I think that's changing, um, because everyone is so scared to like speak up about their abortion. So that means that the people who aren't afraid to talk can totally define what the cultural narrative is. Do you know what I mean? So even when I started working at Shout Your Abortion, I wouldn't even say the word abortion like out loud. I was just like, it really needs like a PR like makeover. Like the word sounds so bad to me. Do you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And that was because like even if you're not thinking about it, you're just like constantly like steeped in all this rhetoric about how abortion is bad, it's rare, you don't know anybody who's had one. And then once people start like taking control of that narrative themselves, you can kind of see what the truth actually is. So it's like we've been fed these like lies from people who aren't afraid to be loud because, you know, we've been kind of like shamed into being quiet. So I think it's super important for people to be able to like shout their abortion, talk about their abortion, because then you see what the truth actually is, and it's like totally different from what we've been led to believe.
No, I completely agree with you. I think, for example, I would say that I'm a little bit contrary to both of you. I did not grow up in a religious environment. There wasn't really like an anti-abortion rhetoric near me, but it just wasn't talked about, you know. So maybe it's not the negative necessarily, but it's still ignored. And to me, that's a big issue because how can we, I don't know, advocate for something and advocate for it to be done safely if we don't even talk about this? And I think that it's very interesting because we get a lot of inquiries for safe to choose. And a lot of the times, people don't say, I need to have an abortion. They say, I have missed my period. What can I do? They won't even say, I'm pregnant. They'll just say, I've missed my period, or what can I do to get my menstruation back? So they won't like exactly say what they need. They know they need it, but they won't say it because there's so much negative connotation to the word abortion. And like you mentioned, like I don't know, maybe people want like abortion with like sparkles and a pink background and like a lot of beautiful colors. You're like, yes, abortion, let's go. But I mean, abortion it is what it is. Neither here or there. It's just a thing. It's a healthcare issue that happens. In your experience, Gail, with how to use, have you noticed that people have an issue with saying the word abortion out loud or connecting with abortions?
For us, not necessarily, because I mean I think it's also because of our name, how to use the abortion pill. So most of the time people are asking, oh, where can I get the abortion pill? That's one of our most popular questions anyway. So where can I get the abortion pill? But I also do see where you're coming from, because a lot of people, even just taking it away from abortion seekers, there are times that when you use the word abortion on some of the social media platforms, it can flag your post. I think that tends to happen on TikTok. So if I'm using the word abortion, there are times I'll have to rearrange it or change the O in it with a zero, just so it's not flagged as a bad word. So this is like a very typical example of the word not being normalized, and it makes it more difficult for people to even want to incorporate it into their content, the things they are talking about. And sometimes I see these story time videos. Someone will be sharing their abortion story, but they'll never actually say the word abortion. They'll probably say get rid of pregnancy. They'll just they always have a phrase to replace abortion. The word is not said by so many people. So yeah, I definitely get you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's just like this big narrative. And the thing is, for example, we're all in different locations. So for Africa and America, Latin America, and we all had a similar experience with the censorship of the word abortion. And it's crazy because you see that in different regions and in different countries, it's still pretty much the same, you know? It's hard to access it regardless of where you live. But speaking about these barriers, for you, Gil, what do you think are some barriers that people face when they want to share or decide that they want to share their abortion story?
Think so for me the first thing is the intersectional challenge. So let's take people from poor backgrounds. So if you are someone who is not from a background that is financially stable, you are always thinking about the future. You're always thinking about the future. And for me, for instance, to personalize it a bit, when in my society abortion is frowned on, like from all angles, societal, cultural, religiously, is frowned upon. So you barely see people in Ghana or people from Africa boldly coming out on social media to say that I've had an abortion, I've done this, because for us, from a very young age. There's a saying here that something that I can't really translate it from the local language to English, but it's something along like you should always look back at where you're coming from to act. So act accordingly. Act according to if you get into trouble, are you from a family that can come around to help you get out of trouble? So this is the mentality of a lot of people. So for someone coming from a less financially abled background, they definitely don't want to share their story because, yeah, if they get into trouble, there'll be no one to help them out. Also, taking individuals in the LGBTQ plus community again in Africa, there's already so much stigma and shame attached to being part of the community. They suffer on the daily. So someone in the community like that, obviously they don't want to add up to the hate they're already getting by coming out to claim that, oh, I had an abortion, or I even know someone who had an abortion. I think the same applies to individuals living with disabilities as well. And one other thing, just still personalizing it, there's a lot of stigma and shame, just like a lot of countries and other continents. There's heavy stigma and shame attached to abortion. So even for me, who have not I've not had an abortion before, and on social media I advocate a lot for it. I've People have just gone ahead to tag me as I only am vocal about abortion because I've had one before. And that also comes with a lot of backlash in my comment section on TikTok, in my TikTok DMs. I get that a lot. People insulting me and insulting my mom and telling me my mother should have flashed me out if this is what I was going to go out to be. So yeah, it takes courage, and it takes a lot for so many people. They really have to sit and consider, is this something I really want to put out there? Like, how is it going to benefit me as a person? So yeah, these are some of the barriers I can think about for now.
Mm-hmm. Well, what you said reminded me that I've also gotten similar things working here at Safe to Choose. Like, your mom should have aborted you, and it's like, they're so wild, not great. But also, yeah, I love how you mentioned this intersectionality point of view. There's so many things that can affect why and how you can talk about an abortion. And I think honestly, for example, just out of the top of my head, I could imagine that there are some cases where somebody shared their abortion story and that like limited their opportunities for other things because people felt like they can judge them because of that one thing they wrote, which is awful. Like that shouldn't happen, but it does happen. Erin, could you share some barriers you've seen that have impacted people and have limited their ability to share their abortion stories?
Yeah, I think they're really similar. It's it's funny to me that the comment that people always make about your mom should have aborted you because it's like, oh, you are pro-abortion then, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? Anyway, yeah, they love to say that one. I think the barriers are very similar. They could be cultural, they could be like economic. You might literally lose your job, you know, you might get kicked out of your religious community, you might get kicked out of your family. You know, your whole future could be like riding on this depending on who like has power and authority over you, you know, and that's really everywhere. It comes in all kinds of forms. And then like beyond those or like legally, you know, you might really get in trouble and go to prison potentially. Um, and beyond those forms of those barriers, I think there's also like interior barriers as well. Like maybe, and I can use myself as an example. There was definitely a time in my life when I wouldn't have wanted to draw any more attention to myself by talking about abortions. I've had more than one, and that just felt like one more like difficult thing to just like shine a spotlight on yourself, you know what I mean? I was like, I can't handle that like pressure at this point in my life. And then I came to a point actually working with SYA where I had a little more stable, had a little more like job security. And it was like that fear is not really real anymore. Like probably nothing's gonna happen. But like interior, it really felt so scary to like talk about having an abortion, even though there were really no like repercussions. There were like mental repercussions and emotional repercussions. So I think that inside yourself there can be these like barriers as well, and that's just like up for each person to decide if that's going to be helpful or not. Like I don't know if I hadn't been working here if I would have ever talked about my abortions actually. But I was like, I'm working at an org called Shout Your Abortion. Like I kind of like have to start talking about them. And it got so easy actually. So I'm a pretty good like model for this system working. Like if you're in a place to like experiment with it, because now everywhere I go, I'm just talking about abortion like all the time and having conversations constantly. But it was really scary to like get past that. So yeah, there's these like real physical barriers, and then there's like interior barriers
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna replicate Gail's strategy about personalizing this because, for example, I started working about reproductive health, and I would catch myself that I'm very proud of the work I do, and I openly tell people I work in this. But depending on who I'm talking to, I either out like flat say I work about abortions, or I say I work on sexual and reproductive health. Like I kind of sometimes also like gauge who I'm talking to and what kind of backlash I can get because it's scary. It's like you said, Erin. It's kind of scary sometimes. You don't know how the other person's gonna react. Not so much because I feel like they're gonna judge me. I really don't care about that. But I don't want to fight with anyone, you know. And unfortunately, a lot of people are so passionate about this topic, but in a very negative way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Mm-hmm.
something that
Mm-hmm.
I feel like happens a lot. I think you have a similar experience, Gil.
Yeah, I do. So I'm actually moving apartments, and just last week, I went to meet the new owner of my new apartment building, and it was an elderly man. So automatically, I just shut down when he asked me where I work. I just clammed up and I said, "Oh, I work with an NGO," and I just kept it at that because even at the beginning of getting to know each other, his undertones were not very receptive. So I did not feel comfortable disclosing that to him. And I really wanted the apartment because I had been searching for a while. So I knew if I mentioned, oh, I advocate for abortions, that yeah, they are going to throw me out. So I just kept it. So I totally agree with you. I do that a lot too. So when I meet someone and they're asking me, oh, where do you work? I try to feel them out a bit before I tell you that, oh, okay, this is what I do. And I'm actually really passionate about it. But yeah, I'm not. And for me, for us in Ghana, for even for us advocating on TikTok, there are days that I get scared that I'll be walking in town and someone will recognize me and do something to me because I get a lot of threats in my DMs. So yeah, I'm closed off when it comes to disclosing what I do for work. So I get you.
Mm-hmm. I feel so bad that this happens. I hate that we live in a world where it happens and like you're doing something that's very helpful and helps a lot of lives and you still get like hate for it and backlash, which really sucks. But I'm glad that Gail is staying safe and she got her apartment, which is really great. I'm really happy for you about that. But also, I wanted to like note that what we're doing right now is storytelling. We're sharing a story of what our experiences are, and for some people, they've maybe never interacted with anybody who advocates for abortions, and this is a great way to know, kind of the things that we face when we're doing this work. But leaning into this part of storytelling and kind of personalizing our experience, Erin, could you share an abortion story that impacted you?
I mean, I've just read and heard like thousands and thousands of stories at this point because it used to be my job to like monitor all the stories that people would send us on the website and then on Instagram as well. So I don't know if any of them really like stand out. The ones that stand out to me the most, I think, are the ones where this is the only place where people feel like they can like tell their story, and they're like, I can't tell anyone in my life, and this is, I can only type out this story on the internet or like DM me on Instagram. Like those are the ones that really affect me the most, because you can just feel
Hmm.
they really need to like talk to someone about this and they can't, or they're very like so like nice and grateful to me, like a stranger on the internet, like thank you so much for listening. Those are the ones that really affect me, because I'm like, abortion is so, it's like so common. You definitely know people in your life who've had abortions, but they can't talk to each other. So I think those are the ones, no matter the circumstances of their abortions, that when people feel so isolated like that, those probably affect me the most.
Hmm. I can understand where you're coming from. I think at Safe to Choose, we've gotten a lot of stories of people who you can feel, like even through text, through a message, you can feel their nerves and their anxiousness and everything, that they just want somebody to listen to them and help them. And I feel like a lot of these organizations that advocate for safe abortion gives that to them, which I'm very thankful for. For at the end of the day, no matter how much, you know, what, if you're going through a lot in your job, you know that you are helping someone, and it makes it everything worth it. From my end, I think I'm similar. I don't know if there's like one specific story that I feel like I could talk about. There's an instance that's sort of related that we've done. Well, I've gone to in person events and I gave information about abortion. Again, I was very kind of like gauging what kind of people were coming towards me. And then I realized that most of the people that were walking toward the booth where we're giving information were older people, people who had children. And there was this one man that came to me and he was like, what is this information? And I shared it to him, like sex ed, safe abortion information, resources, everything is free. And then another lady came to me and they both thanked me and they both were kind of quiet about it. They were like, I have a daughter and I don't know how to talk to her about these things, but I kind of want to give her this information and have her read it so she knows that it exists. And if she doesn't feel like she wants to talk to me about it, she can go to these pages. And I just realized how much people really want these resources, and sometimes they don't have the words to explain it to their loved ones, and that just, it opened my mind, my eyes to see like this is information that people need, that they want. We're doing something that's very important and can change lives. um, but it also kind of made me reflect on maybe my own prejudices, that I thought everybody was going to be automatically against it, and I think it's not so much that they're against it, but they don't know anything about it, so they're kind of curious too. And I think if we all step into this conversation with a bit of curiosity, we'll see that we have a lot of common things in common, and we can get to a point where we can all be like, yes, advocating for abortions is very important. For you, Gail, any abortion story or instances that have impacted you?
I think for me, those that really gets me in a chokehold, very Gen Z phrase, was yeah, are the ones where people usually when people reach out to me, they just go straight into why they want to get the abortion. So sometimes it's those stories that really gets to me, especially when these people are reaching out from countries that I do not have any information or resources available for them. Sometimes most people reach out to me from Asia, and some of the countries I've never even heard of. And I go to our page, I go to Safety Shoes, and I can't find any information on them. And having to go back to tell them, I'm so sorry, but I do not have knowledge of any resources. It just breaks me, because sometimes they have like the saddest stories, and you can tell they really need it, they need to have it, and me not being able to help. I think those really stand out to me. But I one that I would definitely never forget was a 19-year-old girl reaching out to me on TikTok, and she was on her third abortion with someone who was way older than her. And the age she mentioned for the man, that man had no business being with a girl that age. And this was her third abortion for the same person. And I got really sad, because it also made me realize she probably doesn't have enough knowledge, enough comprehensive sex education to have to be going through this. So with her, we had a very long chat, and as I helped her with the resources to get the abortion, I asked her once everything is done, she can reach out to me whenever. And she did reach out to me again, actually. So we had a very long conversation about contraceptives, if she's going to continue being sexually active. So yeah, I was just very I was sad about that particular story because she was so young, and that being her third time also with somebody who is a predator. It was just I was just sad. It's something I'll probably never forget. And yeah, it made me, my younger sister was at the same age at that point, so it made me really think about her. And I was hoping that if she's ever in a situation like that, I was hoping that I can be someone that she can come to for that sort of support. So yeah, those are the ones that have really stood out to me and yeah, had an impact.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, just hearing the story, I feel like I want to cry. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. It just makes me so sad, and it frustrates me so much. And it's why, like I said in the beginning, sometimes we only see statistics on abortion or percentages, and we forget that these are people, who are living things, who need the support and help. It's so frustrating, but I think part of the good thing about advocating for storytelling is that we'll hear more of these stories, and hopefully they have an impact, especially on legislation, on the laws restricting abortion, and it makes it much easier to access and to give quality services. Um, but I'd like to ask you, Erin, how can abortion advocates reach a broader audience through sharing abortion stories?
Um, to be honest, I'm not that strategic about my work. I think it's just interesting, and I think you probably reach a cultural like tipping point with people just like sharing more and more stories and it becoming more and more normalized. Um, I think the more that people share and the more that people talk about it, I don't know if that's really, I don't know if I'm answering your question. It's because it's for me, it's not like a strategy necessarily. I just like see it happening. Like the
Mm-hmm.
more stories we share, people interact with each other in the comments. They become friends. They start talking about their experiences. So I think just like normalizing it in any way you can just has like a, what do you call it? Like a snowball effect, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Um, so that's not like a strategy necessarily, but it's just kind of like making it a part of like normal life. And I think it kind of like works organically
Mm-hmm.
that way.
No, I think that's really great. And something that Gail and I tend to mention a lot is that even just conversing with your family members or your friends or your close ones, it makes a huge difference, even if you think it doesn't. And I think that's the snowball effect you're talking about. One tweet, yeah, exactly. That one tweet about shout your abortion created such an amazing page that has so many shared experiences. So doing these little things really make a big impact. For you, Gil, how is framing and the language you use important for sharing the stories of people?
I think we talk about framing a lot at WFD, and I think that how you share a story, how you frame it, can greatly impact the effect it's going to have on your listeners, on your readers, just your general audience, anybody who is looking at it. Because sometimes the words you use, some of the phrases you are using, it can evoke certain emotions that you do not want to be evoked, especially when it comes to a topic that has has become so sensitive, and it has always been actually, and now we are trying to normalize it. But for many people, it's a very sensitive topic. It's very personal, so there are certain words that if you use, you are going to evoke negativity. You probably make an abortion seeker feel some sort of shame or stigma, and make them seem like a victim. I don't know if somebody who has had an abortion wants to be seen as a victim. Maybe some do, but for a lot of women, it's an empowering decision for them. So they do not want to be seen as victims. So yeah, mainly the words we use, the phrases, and even when it comes to the narrations, like what feelings are you trying to evoke when somebody reads the story you are putting out. So yeah, these are very important when you are thinking about framing a story.
Mm-hmm. This reminds me of a conversation I had another day, and it was about people who feel the need to justify their abortion. I think that's another way that frames it kind of negatively. We get a lot of people DMing us, and the first thing they do is like justify, like I had an abortion because blah blah blah, you know, and they feel the need to like get your approbation for you to help them, which is entirely incorrect. You know, we'd support anybody no matter their circumstance. And I think that's also one of the things that needs to be changed in order to actually like eliminate all these negative narratives around abortion. I know that Shout Your Abortion does such an amazing job framing all these abortion stories and showcasing how they can empower people. So, Erin, how can we uplift those who have had abortions and their stories?
Yeah, I think just kind of it's related to what we were just talking about is maybe kind of like confronting the stigma that you have in yourself and saying accidentally stigmatizing things because okay, I'm thinking too many things right now. How can we uplift people? One, because abortion is just like so, it's like so common. Do you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like
Yeah.
we all know so many people who've had abortions, and of course, people who think they don't know anybody who has had an abortion like they do. So we're talking about uplifting like just regular people that you know in your life that have like had abortion because it's such a like a normal thing. So I think like becoming like a safe non-judgmental person to like listen to people's abortion stories is a great way to do that. And it can be like difficult, you know, like I sometimes even still see it in myself. Like you can see it around like later abortion, for example, or if people are like, whoa, you could have one abortion, but like more than that, like
Mm-hmm.
didn't you learn your lesson, like stuff like that, you know, where people just kind of think it's like common knowledge or something, but then when you or like, well, I support abortion, but not if people use it as birth control. And then you're like, why? You know, like, what do
Mm-hmm.
you mean? So things like that, I think, you know, kind of like dismantling that abortion stigma in yourself, and it's really everywhere, and just kind of like listening to people's like they're the best judge of their own life, and life is like super complicated, you know,
Mm-hmm.
so just kind of like trying to like listen to their story in a non-judgmental way as possible, no matter how they express it, even if they don't express it in a way that's like sounds good in the news or something, you
Mm-hmm.
know. I think that's a really good way to like uplift people who've had abortions because their stories are just like across the spectrum. So you really have to just like try to get rid of that stigma and just be like, okay, that's what happened, you know? Like I
Mm-hmm.
support you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we always kind of see that stigma is our number one enemy for all the topics we cover. It's just, it's always there. Um, no, but yeah, I think it's so important to do it. And like you mentioned, even if you think you have no like internal judgment, or if you think you are completely free of anything, you have to ask yourself, like, am I really free of judgment? Like, if somebody came and gave me the honest truth about their story, will I listen compassionately and with respect and care? So we can always learn and we can always do better. Uh, Gail, I want to ask you, what can allies do to empower abortion seekers and their stories?
Being an ally, I think one thing I try to constantly do is not stop learning, like researching, looking for information, so that whenever somebody reaches out to me, I'm always available to help. Like even when I don't know, and somebody reaches out to me to ask me something, even if I don't know, I never tell them I don't know because they are coming to me for a reason. I will go to Google, I will go to social media, all the pages, I think are reliable and accurate enough. So just consistently researching, updating your knowledge, whether medical, whether how to use the pills, uh, what's are going to be like the signs of possible complications, just literally everything, everything about the whole process. Just make sure that you are updated. Um, Also try to be a positive person. I know you cannot be great every day. You can't be positive every time. But as an ally, if somebody reaches out to you on your back, I don't think we can have off days. But when I have off days, I just totally go off my platform because I do not want to be in a bad mood and somebody reaches out to me and I snap at them or anything like that. Because I always want to be as positive as I can for the people coming to me. Because I I know that for a lot of people, abortion comes very not easily. That's not the right word to use, but they don't go through like any mental hurdles. But for me, being in Africa, most of the people who reach out to me, it's a struggle. I don't think I remember anybody reaching out to me on TikTok who wanted to have an abortion just because these people always have a reason. And like you mentioned, V, even though they don't have to, they always start with their reason. And sometimes it's sad and it's frustrating. And even them getting to the point of making the decision, they've been through so much. So I do not want to be the reason why somebody snaps and says, I don't even want to get this abortion anymore, or I don't want to do that, I don't want to do. So I always try to be positive, be as encouraging as I can be, reassure them, direct them to the resources I know, and yes, just be a friend. Like, I know I'm not really their friend, but as compassionate as a friend can be, and also always tell them my DMs are always open, my door is open if they want to just talk about anything. It does not even have to be about their abortion, but as they are going through their abortion journey, if they just need to know that someone is here who is listening, maybe I'm in pain, and they can just tell me to let me know that, oh, I'm in pain, or okay, this is my third day on the pill and this is what is going on. So yes, just being a safe space is a great help as an ally for a lot of abortion seekers.
Hmm. I think first you're their internet bestie, so I feel like that's why they go to you. But what you said about safe spaces is so true, and I think even in your inner circle, I have a lot of friends who know that I'm very much an advocate for these things, and they'll ask me things that might not necessarily be related, but they found a safe space, and they're like, okay, this person is open about talking about abortions. Maybe I can talk to them about other topics. So that's always a great way to help. Yes, so we're coming to the end of our live stream, and I think I'd just like for us to conclude with a key message we'd like to share to the listeners. Erin, is there a key message you would like for everyone to know or think that they should reflect on?
I think just a super basic like abortion is normal. It's okay. Like everybody's having a couple. Basically, in my experience, like my view has been completely changed in my like 5 years working here. So
Mm-hmm.
just that abortion is normal, it's happening everywhere, and anything that you can do to normalize that, I think goes a long way in the long run towards like people getting safe abortions all over the world. It may seem like a really small thing, but normalizing it, I think, is huge.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. I think it's just like a great step towards a better future, especially in regions where there's a lot of backtracking in regards to accessing abortions. I think what I would share is that you don't have to have an abortion or have had an abortion to be pro-choice or pro-abortion. I think regardless of if you've experienced it or not, first of all, listening to the stories of all the abortion seekers and people who've had abortions is very impactful. You'll see that somebody your age or maybe your mom's age, or maybe a grandmother who shared their stories of when they were younger, shifts this narrative we've had about nobody has abortions, or like they're all top secret and we should be ashamed about it. It's not that. It's just something that happens. Abortions are normal. Abortions are a part of healthcare, and abortions can happen when becoming a choice of love for yourself and your body and what you think is good for you and your future. Gail, any key messages you would like to share?
Yes, to anybody listening, abortions are not like clothes or shoes where one size fits all. I know sometimes with the storytelling, some people go to read others, and I get people telling me, "Oh, I read somebody's story and they bled for 1 week. I only bled for 3 days. So I think my abortion did not work." It's not one size fits all. Everybody's experience can be different. So it's okay if your feelings are not like the next person. It could be you and your sister getting an abortion, and your journey can be totally different, even though you are related. So, yes, your experience does not have to be the same as somebody else's. That's why we encourage that you share, but also no pressure because we totally understand. But if and when ever you are at a place where you want to speak to somebody, you want to share your story, Shout to Abortion is here for you to share your story, and without judgment and without stigma and shame. You can also go to Safe to Choose and their testimonial section to share your story. We just want you to know we are here to listen whenever you are ready.
Thank you, Gail. I think that's very lovely. We're here. We're always here. No matter what, we're here year round. Erin, please share the resources for those who are listening where they can contact Shout Your Abortion, any project Shout Your Abortion is working on that you would like people to know about.
Yeah, so we're on Instagram at Shout Your Abortion. And then the website is shoutyourabortion.com. There's a TikTok, which is Shout Your Abortion as well. And then I have one that's Abortion is Normal on TikTok. Um, yeah, if you go to the website, you can share your story, you can read tons of stories, and there's also a materials section where there's a bunch of free posters and different materials that people can like download for free. And you can also join our organizing program, which is branching out to be international. So if you go to the website and click get involved, then it'll take you to a place to sign up for the mailing list. But if you want to become more involved, then you can tell us a little bit about where you are, what country you're in, and we're definitely starting to like intentionally reach out internationally. So I would love it if people in different countries like reached out to me via our website and we can like plot for some projects across the world.
I love that. We're plotting for safe abortions. I think that's a great way to kind of end the final messages. Gail, please share the resources for how to use abortion pill.
Hi everyone, as usual, you can find us on Twitter, on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube as How to Use Abortion Pill or HTU Abortion Pill on all the platforms. Yeah, that's about it. Back to you, V.
Thank you. For Safe to Choose, you can find us on TikTok, X, Instagram, Facebook, Vimeo, and YouTube as at Safe to Choose. For abortion support, go to safetochoose.org and remember that we have our free counseling services. So if you are on your abortion journey and you need a digital hand to hold while you're going through it, remember our counselors are here for you, multilingual, free of stigma, compassionate, and filled with a lot of love for all of you. But yes, I would like to thank you, Gail and Erin, for joining this live. And yeah, everybody remember, go check out these pages. We're always here for you. Bye.